Welcome to the eighth edition of Behind the Helmet with NTT IndyCar Series driver Sting Ray Robb. I'm your host, David Hoffman, and I'm joined by the driver of the number 51 Honda for Dale Coyne Racing with Rick Ware Racing, Sting Ray Robb. Sting Ray, how you doing today?
I'm doing good, David. How are you?
I'm doing pretty good. It's a crisp morning here in Pennsylvania. How is it there in Indianapolis?
I haven't been outside yet today, but as of yesterday, it was pouring rain and a little chilly, but it looks cleared up today and probably still a little brisk.
That was our weather update for the day in the episode. But yeah, obviously you guys weren't able to test at Indy. Was that Friday? Yeah, Friday. Can't even get my day straight here right now. But yeah, we'll talk about the Indy 500 testing. First day of testing for you at Indy. But yeah, a lot to talk about from Texas to Long Beach to then Indy tests. So let's get right into Texas starting off. It was a new venue for you. I know you tested there. We talked about that in the last episode, but as I know we were speaking heading in there, how would you assess the weekend overall? Obviously, you had a little bit more track time than most weekends that you've had.
Yeah, I think overall Texas was a great weekend, other than the crash there at the end. But going into qualifying, I knew that we had a pretty good car. David put it pretty far up in the field, and I made a mistake on my qualifying run, and now I know not to do that. So I think that with that knowledge and experience, I'm better off for the future. But we started 23rd in the race, and then we just kept working our way up. At some point during the race, I think that I took a look around, and I was with a four-time Indy 500 champ and a few other guys that knew their way around the racetrack. So it was fun battling out there. And then a late restart came out with I don't know, maybe 70 laps to go. And I started just moving my way through the field. It was like a light switch. And we were going one, two cars in a turn on the outside of one and two and three and four there. So we were really good in traffic, and I felt very confident in the car. And then pretty soon I was in P12 or P13, something like that, making a move forward. And I had another car in front of me check up a little bit sooner than I was expecting. And at those speeds, you're doing 215, 220 miles an hour. The closing rates are insane. And so I didn't realize how much they were slowing down. And I had the choice to either run in the back of them or go up a lane. And I went up a lane. And at Texas, we all know that there's that sort of gray area that you don't want to run in because just no grip up there. And I got up there, and that was pretty much the end of the day. I just walked it up to the wall, hit the right side, and then that right front tire hooked. It went underneath the car and hooked, and it pulled me straight left into the inside tire barrier. And yeah, I felt that hit pretty big.
I know that obviously that was a disappointing ending, but just how much confidence does having a race like that where you're running near the top 10 at a completely new venue, new for you, just how much confidence does that give you moving forward, just not only on the ovals, but just on any other racetrack?
No, it's big. It's really big. And after St. Pete, um, I didn't really know where we were going to land at Texas because it was a track I hadn't been to. I hadn't raced there. I hadn't been on a super speedway. And so I think I was a bit nervous going into the event just because I didn't have that knowledge of what to expect. And then once we got in the race, it was like, okay, 10 laps in, my times dropped and I started like figuring it out. And so I think for me, like my confidence grew a lot just during the session, during the race. And then obviously post event, I had the crash, and there was a lot of good things to take away, but I also had the lesson of what not to do. So I think going forward, like my confidence level at super speedways is way up.
And passing there was insane all day. I feel like it's probably one of the more racy circuits we've seen at Texas here in a while. Just how was the action from your perspective?
Unbelievable. That was some of the most fun I've ever had on an oval. And like you said, I think that the series did a good job getting the car's downforce level right so that we could make moves. And that upper lane, we did a practice session where we just had to run the second lane, and that really worked the rubber into that line. And I think Newgarden and Pato ran that outside line for most of the race just because they could stay up there. There was good grip there, and it would hold their speed and not scrub it away.
You mentioned Pato O'Ward and Joseph Newgarden. I mean, they were running blistering paces all day. At one point, was it only those two were on the lead lap? Just could you feel that pace like amped up a little bit more, or how does that feel as a driver?
Yeah, I definitely could tell that they were going faster. When they went by me as they were lapping everyone else, yeah, you could tell those were the two guys to beat, and there was no slowing them down. I don't know what they had going on inside those cars, but they figured something out. They were fast.
Obviously, then was it 2 weeks later? Long Beach was up next for you, another new venue for you. Turnout was crazy for that entire weekend, just
Yeah.
from different celebrities. Anyone else there is crazy. What was that like for you to experience just a venue like that? I know you've been to the Indianapolis 500 as a spectator, but just to be at Long Beach and that always has a huge turnout. What was that like for you?
Long Beach was awesome. It was kind of funny. The day before the racing started, it was 55 degrees and rainy in Long Beach, and it was 80 degrees and sunny in Indianapolis. I said, wait, whoa, 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 whoa. We came to California for the good weather, not the bad weather. What is
Supposed to be
this? So,
swapped.
yeah. So that was kind of ironic, but the actual race venue and everything was awesome. I got to visit there last year just as a fan, and then just to be a part of the event this year was great. There's so many people there, and the track itself is pretty crazy. The fountain turn is tight, and the hairpin at the end of the circuit there is super tight. And it's honestly a pretty good width for a street course compared to other tracks that we go to. And so I was really surprised to see how well it raced. And it wasn't the best race for us. We lacked a bit of pace, but overall, I was pretty happy to be there. And it also is on the West Coast, and so that means a lot of friends and family had to come out. And so we had about 50 people, I think, at the end of the weekend that had come out from either back home to Idaho or they had moved to California or somewhere in the middle, and just wanted to support. And it was great to see them there. It's the first time that everyone's been able to come to an IndyCar race for me to watch me drive. So it was really fun.
And obviously, you mentioned it wasn't like the best of races, but it was clean and you stayed out of trouble, and that's the important thing. Just, I guess, how would you describe, like, are you able to bring much from St. Pete into Long Beach, and how do those two tracks differ from what you saw?
Yeah, I think so. At St. Pete, we were off the lead lap early because of the crash on the start. And so for myself, it became a kind of a fuel saving race. We were trying to get our lap back, so we'd pit a lap later than all the leaders and just try and carry it on through the race. And we did get our lap back at some point during the race. But Long Beach was much of the same. We had to do a full on fuel saving strategy. That was the entire race, was how to save fuel. And so I think for a lot of guys, they were experiencing that. It wasn't just me that had that situation. So that's kind of why it's turned into a single file, uh, I'll say boring race. Not a lot going on, not a lot of passing going on, except for on the restarts, because everyone realized that the number that they had to hit fuel wise was going to be pretty big. And so that meant drafting other cars, lifting where you could, using different throttle maps, or not throttle maps, fuel maps, so that you're saving more fuel. And so all that knowledge and experience I gained at St. Pete based on that subject also carried into Long Beach really well. So I was pretty happy with that. And I knew what to expect. At St. Pete, I was like brand new, fresh off the boat kind of a deal. And I really wanted to figure out like pit stops and tire strategies and all that. And I could kind of see that play out in the race. We started on the primary tires for the event, and that early caution came out, and it allowed all the guys on the alternates to have the advantage of the early pace, but not the disadvantage of the tire deck at the end of the run. And so they were able to get onto the primaries, where I had to switch from the primaries to alternates. And so our middle stint, we were struggling big time. We had pace at the very beginning of it, but we were fuel saving. So there's not a lot of passing going on. And then later on in the stint, the tire deg was just massive, and all the guys that were in the primaries were able to pull away. So it was just a bad yellow for us, and I could see that strategy playing out during the race, as well as just like how I needed to save fuel and where I can make moves. And I think I learned a lot during Long Beach, so that for the next one, I'm even more prepared. And I think that's just part of IndyCar racing. You get more experience and you get better as you go.
And obviously, we had a first-time winner. Kyle Kirkwood won his first career win from the pole. Just you've raced with Kyle on the road to Indy Series for a good bit of years now. Just even before he was in the series, what did you see out of him as a competitor that stood out to you?
Yeah. Yeah. I've known Kyle since probably about 2012. We were just little guys back then, but he was always a category or two above me, because he's a little bit older than myself. So I would always see him win races and go-karts. And I remember very vividly there was a race in the Florida Winter Tour where he made a last lap pass on a driver to win the championship, I'm pretty sure. So he was always running at the front of the field, it seemed like. And then as he got into the road to Indy, he obviously did very well. And racing against him was always a bit frustrating because I was always new and he was always the guy. And so there's a couple times that I'd be able to challenge him, and we'd race, and he would win and I would win or whatever else. And so yeah, it's cool to see him win now. I think that there's a lot of guys in motorsports that have grown up in kind of like this generation of go-karters. And so it's fun to see like all of us and where we started and where it's going. And, Pato Award, Colton Herta, Kyle Kirkwood, all those guys I grew up go-karting with at some point or another. And even my teammate, David Malukas, those were all people that I've known since I was 8, 9, 10 years old.
Obviously, the new generation's really starting to creep up in here, but the guys like Scott Dixon, Elio, and everyone else, they're still, they still got a couple years left. Um, then the premiere of 100 Days to Indy was before the race weekend in Long Beach, IndyCar's docuseries. How would you describe the first viewing of 100 Days to Indy, and what should we expect as viewers?
I am very excited to see what people think. I think it's going to create good interest for the sport. You know, IndyCar's been lacking that sort of storytelling side of what other series might have. And so I think that this is a great opportunity just to tell the story of the drivers, show the characters. I think that if you want to watch a race, don't watch the premiere, watch a race. So I think that it's more of a character development for people. And I think that they do a good job of not dramatizing it and actually showing what's going on. They don't twist it. They don't manipulate the story to make it something that it's not. It's real. It's true. It's raw. So I think that people are going to latch onto that. And IndyCar is enough drama as it is. You don't need to spice it up any. It's already pretty spicy. So you got 27 of the best drivers in the world out there, and there's a lot going on. So I think that allows a lot of stories to be told. And so I think that as the series continues, it's going to get better and better, just because they're going to find their sort of rhythm and finding out who the stars are, and also trying to tell the story a little bit more concise. I think early on they're going to be flooding everyone with a lot of information that might not be good for the original viewer that hasn't seen IndyCar before. But for someone that knows IndyCar and has watched it, I think that they're really going to enjoy the premiere.
And that's what is this so interesting. And this, like, obviously the series has lacked a little bit of, I mean, people who have watched it, been around the sport, been in the paddock, they've seen the personalities. We know they're all across the board. I mean, you got so many guys who it's easy for people to latch onto because of their personalities, but to see now with the docu series, this is just going to be, it's going to help the sport kind of reach that new height that a Formula One Drive to Survive or anything NASCAR does that people may not have seen before.
Yeah, absolutely.
And 100 Days to Indy premieres on the CW this Thursday at 9 p.m. Eastern. So you guys should make sure to tune into that. Hopefully it's a great premiere, and we'll keep talking about that. Maybe we'll see Sting Ray here in the next couple episodes as well. So you tested and at Indy on the oval for the first time on Thursday. That's pretty big news. Just take me through those first laps of rookie orientation, the feels, the emotion, and just the raw speed that Indianapolis presents.
Yeah. Well, I think it's a bucket list item for any driver to do what I did on Thursday, just to drive around Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Um, what an opportunity. It was so stinking cool. And the rookie orientation is kind of silly, but it's kind of funny because we're running a 15 lap period for speeds of 205 miles an hour to 210 miles an hour to start. And the cars are not made to go that slow. So I'm lifting on the straightaways and coasting, and then driving it through the corners to create a better balance. And then for the 210 to 215 range, I'm like kind of getting better, and it's almost flat. And then for the 215, I just drive flat out. So it was fun to kind of feel what the car is capable of doing at those speeds. And I had a good expectation of what the car would be like compared to what it was like at Texas. But unlike Texas, Indianapolis has got one lane, so you can't manage the passing through two lanes. And also it's a low bank track, and so that creates a different feeling than what I had at Texas. And it was also quite windy, and so the wind was pushing me down into turn 3, and then a headwind down into turn 1, and so that created a different balance at each end of the racetrack. So I had to adjust my tools accordingly. But as the day got on, we were just working on taking small bites and figuring out what I needed from the car, because at Indianapolis, it happens very quick. If the car bites, it bites hard. And so as a driver, it's really easy to become impatient and go chase whatever the issue is right away, and then take too big of a bite out of it, and then the car bites back. And so For me, I think that the team did a good job of kind of managing expectations and saying, hey, like, let's just take it easy. We'll run in traffic a little bit. We'll do this. We'll try this. We'll do this. And my spotters did a good job of keeping me online. And I think pretty early on, we just established, oh, okay, this is the driving line, and this is how you drive around here. And that's like the one way you get around Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Um, so it was really good. I think that I'd like to have been further up the list on my first day, but we weren't last, and we weren't in the wall, and it was a great learning experience. And I think as we get into the month of May, we're going to be on track a lot, and so that means that we can do a lot of work on myself, on the car, and also the team's going to figure out what I want, and so we're just going to keep working on that and learning, and hopefully the 500 is a good event for us.
You imagine just how all the track time you guys end up having throughout the month of May. I mean, you're on track for at least, I don't know, like 10 to 11 times even before qualifying begins. You're it's almost going to be your most prepared event, which obviously is what you want to have.
Yeah.
So just looking at the timesheets, you mentioned you logged 73 laps, best time of 221.785. Just how can you improve on that? And I mean, I know they're microseconds, a little bit of speed here and there. And some guys, I think they're running 229. How do you find that 8 mile an hour difference when the track is what it is and you know what the car is going to do?
Yeah, I think it's a matter of trimming out the car and getting a good tow. We didn't really get a good tow towards the end of the day. And so for me, I was just running on my own, trying to get in some sort of a draft to feel that aero wash. But the way that it worked out, we weren't able to get a good solid tow down the straightaway. So when you have that strong headwind going into turn one, having a car in front of you punches such a big hole. So you can gain so much more speed doing that. So I think for those guys that have those really, really good times, they'll put new tires on and they'll just go out behind a group of cars and just follow them, and not too closely. They'll let them tow them along and pull them closer to the group. And so for me, I didn't get that sort of feeling, that experience level to feel confident doing that. And so the tow didn't have that big of advantage for us.
And one final question with Indy, just you mentioned the banking difference between Texas and Indy. How much can you feel that banking difference, and what can the difference of, I mean, obviously Texas like here and then Indy's down there, just how much of that do you feel within the race car, and how does that kind of affect how the air kind of pushes around your car?
It's a completely different feeling, because at Texas, you actually have vertical loading. So we're at such an angle that I can feel the vertical loading on my shoulders and through my body and then through my back, pushing me into the bottom of the seat, as well as the horizontal pushing me into the side of the car. But at Indy, you don't have that sensation of vertical loading near as much. So at Texas, we were doing probably 4 horizontal and 2 vertical Gs. And at Indy, it's probably closer to like 3 and 1.2 or something. It's a much lower G-force level, but at the same time, we're doing just as high of speeds. I think part of that is that at Indy, the corners themselves are a wider arc, and because it is 4 corners, they're able to do that, and it is also a longer racetrack. And so the sort of sensation that I had in the car was different than in Texas because of that. It seems like Indy's more of a knife edge. You don't have the forgiveness of the banking to kind of hold you into the track. Whereas Texas, you could kind of feel the car rotating or understeering, and it wouldn't be a snappy sort of a thing. It would be a more progressive feeling because the banking kind of allowed the car to still have load on it, even when you were pitching the car around.
That should be interesting, and obviously you'll get more comfortable as the month of May goes on. We only have a couple more, probably a week until May hits, so it should be
Yeah.
interesting. And obviously we'll be talking about that in later episodes. Switching topics quickly, Barber's next weekend. I know it's one of your favorite tracks to go. It'll also be the first pure road course that you've had in your rookie seasons. How are you feeling going in there?
I feel very excited about Barber because it's a track that I've been to. It's a track that is a permanent road course, so it doesn't have concrete walls holding us in. And if you make a mistake, you can maybe drop a wheel, or there's not a whole lot of room for error at Barber, but at the same time, it looks a little bit more forgiving. So you can challenge a little bit more and maybe push a limit, where at other tracks, if you push it and it bites back, you're going to be in the wall. So for me, I'm excited about that. Also, it's a great event. Barber's a beautiful racetrack. It's got great elevation. I'm interested to see what we roll off the truck with for a package. We had a test there earlier this year, and I think that we learned a lot that day. So we'll see how it goes. I'm excited about it. I think it'll be fun.
It's been a bit of a slower start this year with scheduling gaps in between so far, but without any consecutive weekends yet, do you feel it'll be easier getting into a rhythm of things once being able to build off performances once the summer kicks in and you're really starting to run on consecutive weekends?
Absolutely. I think that for myself personally, I recognize a need to be in the car consistently. And we've spoken about this before. You look at any other athlete, basketball, baseball, football, they can go outside and hit a golf ball, or they can go outside and shoot hoops or whatever else. We don't have that luxury so much. We can't just drive our race car every day. And so for most of the year, we're spending time outside of the seat preparing to get into the seat. And that's not very intuitive in the sense that the best practice that you can have is actually doing the thing that you're trying to get better at. And so for me, I just know that my brain processes things in a much more experience based way. I'm going to try and fail and try and fail and try and fail. And that's how I learn. And I think that's how anyone learns. But I noticed that I'm more of a creep up on it. And then once I get it, it's like a light switch and that'll come on. And I think that just as we get more into the season, the more consistent the races are, that light switch might come on a little bit sooner.
That light switch might even come on a little bit more at Indy because you're logging those laps. So should be a really interesting month of May here coming up, and obviously Barber as well. Sting Ray, are you ready for random question generator?
I'm ready. Here we go.
Actually, it's David's question generator, but so very hypothetical question here. Every single racetrack in the world is getting demolished in one big swipe, except one. Which one would you save and why?
Oh man, that is a ridiculous question.
You're welcome.
In all the tracks in all the world, that is a lot of tracks. Man,
You can only save one.
I can only say one. Ah, um, I'm gonna say Laguna Seca because it's close enough to Idaho that I could make a trip out. Um, it's also a beautiful area, and the track itself is legendary. And there's nothing quite like the corkscrew, and it also races pretty well. You can still make passes, you can still enjoy it. So, um, I think overall that's the one I would say, but that's tough. That's really tough.
That's a great track too, because yeah, you mentioned even I was just thinking outside of it, you got like all just the sights around it, and then the track itself is such a cool racetrack. I mean, you got the big old hill you can watch barreling down the corkscrew. I mean, that's just that you can't go wrong with that. I mean, for me, it's either Indy or Watkins Glen. I have to say Watkins Glen just because I've been there so many times, and it's just like one of those things where you're like it's my baby,
Yeah,
I can't get rid of that. So I'd say Watkins Glen, definitely.
I think that's a
IndyCar
good
needs to
choice.
race there too.
I agree, 100%.
Hopefully in a couple of years. Oh, I saw Milwaukee. I guess IndyCar's in talks with Milwaukee or something. So that could be interesting. Milwaukee mile back soon, maybe.
It could be. We'll see how that goes. I don't have experience there, but from what I hear, it would be an interesting venue.
Could be kind of like Gateway in a way, but its own little animal in itself.
Yeah.
If you could star in any movie in the world that's ever come out, what would it be and why?
Oh man. I just watched the new Avatar movie, and I think that would be really cool to be a star in. Because I feel like all of the different things that they're doing, because it's not just CGI, it's like very intuitive filming. I think it'd be pretty fun. Pretty fun to be a part of that.
I haven't seen the new one yet. Where is that at? Is that on Disney Plus now or something?
It's on
Or
Amazon, I
Amazon?
think.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll have to watch that then. So you'd be one of the blue avatar people running around.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it'd be kind of fun.
Yeah, that's a good one. Yeah, I didn't think about that. I'd say, I mean, someone who watches Star Wars, I feel like on a weekly basis, it'd be cool to be in Star Wars. I mean, the newer ones, being able to shoot one of those guns, be a stormtrooper, something like that. I don't know. It'd just be cool.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree.
A final question was a little. I just dug in the back of my brain for this one. Is a hot dog a sandwich?
Is a hot dog a sandwich? I mean, I would qualify a sandwich a piece of protein between two pieces of bread. So You cut the hot dog bun in half. Sure, it'll be a sandwich.
I don't know. It's like it's not regular bread. It's just, I mean, there's no cheese. I guess you could add cheese. All right,
Could add
but
cheese.
ew, I don't know. That I've seen hot dogs with like they like infuse the cheese in it and then then you boil it or something. I don't know. That just sounds nasty to me. I don't know
Yeah,
if Road America sells that kind of thing, but that'd be kind of
I think Road America is pretty good at staying true to their classics and just doing the brats. I think that they're good at that.
yeah. Maybe I'll have to try that sometime if I ever head out there.
There you
But
go.
that's all the time we have today for another episode of Behind the Helmet. We'll look out for another episode here after Barber. We appreciate you guys for tuning in. You can follow the podcast on Twitter and Instagram at Behind Catch. And where can fans follow you, Sting Ray?
So you can follow me on all social medias at Sting Ray Robb. My Twitter is at Sting_Ray_Robb. And then Rob is spelled ROBB. And if you guys want to follow along on the IndyCar circuit, we are broadcast on NBC Sports and the NBC Sports broadcasting app, which is Peacock TV. And our next race is coming up next weekend at Barber Motorsports Park.
And Stingray mentioned it. Make sure to tune in to the Children's of Alabama Indy Grand Prix, April 30th at 3 p.m. Eastern Time on NBC and Peacock. Well, thank you guys for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.